So here are your notes for section 2.4, your homework that I'm giving you guys to take notes on. So objective today is to be able to write an equation of a line given certain information about that line. So if you think about what we've done so far, what we did was I gave you an equation. From that equation, you wrote a line, or you drew a line. So we're working backwards now. Now I'm going to give you some information about a line, and then from that information of the line, you're going to write an equation. So that's what our goal is today, to look at parts of a line and then figure out how to write the equation for it. So just a little recap here, three forms of linear function. There's slope intercept, that's the most familiar one, point slope, and standard forms. So these are all the same graph here. I just wanted to show you guys why, what each of these different forms, what they kind of tell us. So the first one is slope intercept form. So basically with slope intercept form, this B part tells you an intercept. So basically it would tell you, okay, that's what that equation would tell you, would be this intercept and then a slope. So the slope, let's say the slope goes up this way, then over this way, and then it gets you another point right there. So that's how you would get those 2 points, and then you would draw your line, and then that's basically how that works. Okay, so that right there gives you the y-intercept. It gives you a slope, and then you get a second point, and then you make your line. Point slope form actually gives you a point on the graph. Now, the difference with this one is that this could be any point along this graph. It doesn't have to be the y-intercept. So point slope form is actually a little bit more general than slope intercept, because slope intercept only gives you an intercept. This one gives you, you can use any point you want on a line. And then it also gives you the slope right here. Okay? So what happens here is that, let's say the point it gave you was right here. And then it'll give you the slope. So let's say the slope goes up and over, and then you'll get a second point on the line, and then you're supposed to draw the line. Okay? So that's the way that that one works. The only thing is, like I said, it could have very easily given you a point down here, gave you the same slope, and you still end up on the exact same line. So that's where point slope works. With the standard form, I think most of you guys said you liked graphing it, finding the intercepts. So with standard form, basically you would have found your y-intercept and your x-intercept, graph that line, and that was it. I also showed you a way to find the slope and the y-intercept using this form also. But today we're going to be focusing mainly on point slope and slope intercept forms. So that was just a quick recap about that. Make sure you understand exactly what each one of these give you, because I might ask you some type of Common Core type question where I could ask you exactly just basically what parts of a line would each one of these yield by looking at it. So just know that stuff. Okay, so on to the examples, or not yet, just kidding. So when you get these type of problems, the minimum information that you will need to write an equation of a line are these two things. This is the bare minimum. They might give you more information than these, but you need at least these two pieces of information. Or if you don't have these two pieces of information, you have to be given a way to find these two pieces of information. So first off, they might give you a point and a slope. They might give you a y-intercept also, but remember, an intercept is just a point. So they might tell you something like, they'll give you a point. So let's say the point was 4, 6, and then they'll give you some information like a slope, and let's say the slope was 1/3. Okay? So you might get these two pieces of information, and then you need to write an equation from there, which is what I'm going to show you. Or they might give you the y-intercept. They might say the y-intercept is 5, and then they'll tell you the slope is 7/2. But remember, this is just the point still. So you still have your point and a slope, and then that is actually enough information for you to get your line. 2 points basically means that they'll give you some information, or they'll give you something where you can find this information where you'll have 2 points to work with. And then from there, we'll learn how to make that into a line. So keep in mind, these are pieces of graphs. For example, this point is part of a graph. You could plot that, and it's on a graph. This 1/3 is kind of like it's a slope, it's your rate of change. When you're graphing, it's kind of like your map to get around to different points. So these are actually parts of a graph already. Same thing here, 2 points is part of a graph. So Technically, what you could do is plot this point, use the slope, actually make the graph, and then try to figure out the graph of the line from there. The reason why we don't do that, keep this in mind, the reason why we do not do that is because I have seen some of your graphs and they don't look too nice. So unless you have a really, really nice way of graphing, I don't suggest using that method, okay? Because it might end up being wrong. So we'll act like I didn't say that method is possible. Well, it's possible, but I'll stop talking now and move on to the next part. First example. So this first example is given a slope and any point. So they can give you whatever point they want. As long as they give you a slope with it, you should be able to find it. Now the method I'm going to show you guys is only one of many methods that could be used for this. But the way I like working with these is starting off in with point slope form. So remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's your point slope form general formula. So now the thing you got to figure out is which parts of this do we have already. So it turns out I have my slope already. This is your m. Okay. Now this point up here, this is an x and a y coordinate, but in this format like this, there's a reason why we put y1 and x1, because it's indicating that that is the first point that we're actually told. So we're going to plug in the 3 and the 4, or the negative 3 and the 4 into those two parts. So negative 3, this is your x1, this is your y1. You're not going to plug it in for x and y, you're plugging it in for x1 and y1. Okay, so now all we got to do is substitute. So y stays the same, minus y1 is a 4. I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses so you can see that we actually plugged it in. Your m is a 2/3, so that got plugged in 2 times x minus, and your x1 is a negative 3. Okay? So a little bit messy, but the reason why I did this was because I wanted you guys to kind of explicitly see the parts that I was plugging in, which was this 4, this 2/3, and this negative 3. I guess I could have just put it in a different color. But yeah, so let's clean it up a little bit, because that doesn't look like any of the forms that we usually have. Normally we don't have a parentheses around the 4 or around the slope right here. So this is y minus a 4 equals 2/3 of x. So when you subtract a negative, it's the same thing as adding the 3 on. And there you go. Now, technically you do have a linear equation right here. This is a line. This is an equation of a line, but it wants it in slope-intercept form. So what we got to do is we got to transform this into slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form looks like this: y equals mx plus b. So basically we got to get the y by itself, and there is no parentheses. So my first step, you could do this way. You don't have to, but you could do it this way. Is to distribute. Okay, because I know I don't have parentheses in slope-intercept form. Equals 2/3 x. 2/3 times this 3 right here. So remember, you multiply by the top number and divide by the bottom number. Or you can do the other way around, where you divide by the bottom number first. So 3 divided by 3 is a 1, and then multiply by the 2, and you get a 2. So it's going to be plus 2. All right, so that's still not slope-intercept form because of this negative 4 right here, or this minus 4, because we should have the y by itself for slope-intercept form. So the opposite of minus 4 is a plus 4. So you get y equals 2/3x plus 6. That is your equation. So what we're saying here is that this equation has a slope of 2/3. That's correct. And if you were to graph this equation, it would actually go through this point. One out of many points it goes through is this one. Okay? All right, so moving on. Next one, given a slope and a y-intercept. Now, keep in mind it says in standard form. So with this one, first I'm going to do it two ways. Let's do it first the way that I just did the other one. So y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. So remember, this is your m. Now it gives you a y-intercept. Now y-intercept's actually a point. Y-intercept is a point 0, negative 8. Okay? So let's plug all those values in. This is your x1 and your y1. If you plug all those values in, you will get y minus a negative 8 equals m is 3/2, x minus, and x1 is a 0. Okay? So the parts I plugged in were this part, and this part right here. All right, so let's clean that up a little bit. Y minus a negative 8 is a y plus an 8 equals, now x minus 0, when you take x and you take nothing away from it, it's just x. So we actually only have 3/2 x right here. All right, now keep in mind, this says it wants it in standard form. Now, standard form says that we do not want fractions, okay? And we have to have x and y on one side. So this is going to be ax plus by equals c is the form it should look like. So first off, we don't like this 2 on the bottom, so multiply everything by 2. That's the little multiplication property of equality, says you're allowed to do that. So you're going to get a 2y plus a 16 equals a 3x. Okay, next step is we need to get all of our x's and y's on one side. So you can do this one of two ways. Either you can subtract the 3x and move it to the left side, or you can subtract the 2y and move it to the other side. Either way, either answer is fine. I'm going to go ahead and move the 2y because it'll be a little bit less work. So minus 2y minus 2y. You will get a 16 equals 3x minus 2y. That almost looks like standard form. You just need the 16 on the other side. And that is standard form. Now, keep in mind, this is the same thing as a negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 16. Those are equivalent equations. Both of those would be acceptable to me because they mean the same thing, so I'm fine with either one of those. Let's see here. Now, there's actually an easier way of doing it than this way. If they ever give you a y-intercept and a slope, you don't necessarily have to plug it into this format. If you can remember this, if they give you a y-intercept and a slope, then you should probably use slope-intercept form to start off with. Even though you have to end up in standard form, you can still do slope-intercept form. So that's going to be y equals mx plus b to start off with. So you do have choices here on how you want to start this. But remember, you can only start it at this form if they give you a y-intercept because it's slope-intercept form. So you need an intercept for this one to work. The nice thing about this form over here is that it doesn't matter if it's an intercept or not, it'll always work. So your choice is to either use the same one for everything that has a slope and a point, or use this one sometimes and sometimes use this one. It's up to you. There are other ways to do it too. So with this one is still the m. That's still your slope. But now this is a y-intercept. This is actually your b. Okay? That's your b right there because that's a y-intercept. So you're actually plugging in y equals, and I'll just write it in green, m is 3 over 2. Okay? X plus, and then your b is a negative 8. So I wrote the parts we plugged in green. Okay, let's clean that up a little bit. So y equals 3 over 2x minus an 8. Now, keep in mind, we don't want this form. We want standard form. Standard form is this right here, ax plus by equals c. We got to get this x over here, and we should not have a fraction for a, b, or c. So to get rid of that fraction, just like last time, we need to multiply both sides by a 2. The LCD. That's going to be 2 times y equals 2 times 3/2 is 3x. 2 times 8 is minus 16. Okay, now just like before, we need to isolate the x on one side. So with this one, I'm going to move the x over. So you're going to get a negative 3x plus a 2y equals a negative 16. Now keep in mind, these two are equivalent. It's kind of like you just multiplied both sides by a negative 1. Actually, it's not kind of like that. It is that. So they are equivalent equations. They both. I've seen some books say that this is standard form, but I've seen this be accepted also. So I'll accept either way. Just know that they are the same and know how to go back and forth depending on what the test is asking for, basically. I'll accept either form though. Okay, so you got two choices here. You don't have to do both of these. You can pick one and do it. All right, so moving on. Slope formula, I just wanted to review this because the next one does require this. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's how you find the slope. So this last one, I didn't give you a slope. I gave you 2 points. Now, if you remember, I said you need at least a point and a slope. 2 points works also because if you think about it, you can still get a slope with 2 points. So we got 2 points here. So what we're going to do is use the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, this is your first xy point. This is your second xy point. So since this is your first one, you put little 1s there. This is your second one, put 2s. Now we just plug in -7 minus 3 over -9 minus a 6. This will be a -10 over a -15. When you simplify that, that will be a 2/3 positive. So that is your slope. 2/3 is your slope. So it wants it in slope intercept. Oh, I just knocked a chair over. Okay, take that. This is your slope. Now, we can't use this. We need it in slope intercept form, but and there goes another one. Okay, sorry about that. I'm saying sorry to empty chairs. Neither one of these is your intercept, so we can't put it directly into slope intercept form. These are both points. So what we're going to use is y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. This really should be your go-to formula for things, just because you can create all the other forms from this form. So it's good to work with this all the time and just memorize this one. Now, there's a problem here. We got too much information. We got our slope. We got to plug in 1 point, but we got 2 points to choose from. Now, you can choose either one of these points and actually get the same answer. Now, you don't have to plug in y1 and x1 just because this says x1 and y1. You can actually plug either one of these points into this formula. Do not, I repeat, do not plug in both points, because with use this formula, you're only supposed to plug in the y1, x1 sections of it. So basically, just pick which one you want to use. I would suggest picking this one, and the reason why is because there's no negatives. You guys tend to make some small mistakes with negatives, so I would rather you use this one, and you would probably rather use that one also. So let's use this one. Okay, so we got y minus y1 is a 3 equals your slope, which is 2/3. Oops, another color. 2/3 x minus, and then your x value that we picked was a 6. And there you go. Now your goal is to get slope intercept form. So that means we got to get y equals mx plus b. So we're going to get y minus a 3 equals, let's go ahead and distribute this. That's going to be 2/3 x. 2/3 times a 6. 6 divided by 3 is a 2, times 2 is a 4. Still not slope intercept form because slope intercept form has the y by itself. So we're going to add 3. Addition property of equality. We're going to get y equals 2/3 x minus 1. And there you go. So that's how you guys do that. So your homework right now is to finish the worksheet we did in class, as well as these 2 practice problems. That way you can make sure that you know how to do these type of things. Tomorrow when you come into class, if you have any questions, the homework monitor will be up at the board. Just let them know if you have a question on example 1, example 2, 3, or practice problem 1, practice problem 2. Okay, so I will be coming around to check that during the warm-up tomorrow. Look, I got done before 20 minutes. So technically it's still shorter than my other videos. So yay. Okay, bye-bye.